Hi, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Joshua.
My name is Samuel. Samuel Solomon Rayner the Third. What's your full name?
Joshua William King, the only.
And that is, by the way, where Joe, I know we've mentioned this, but it's been a while, Joe Wiki. And
hey, I ordered vanity plates, and it's going to say Joe Wiki.
No way. Like
I
license
did.
plates?
Yeah, like, and you know, my kids were giving me a hard time. They were like, that's so vain. And I was like, honestly, I just wanted black ones because of the way my truck looks. I wanted black to blend in. You have to order the vanities in Texas to get the black one. And so I had to put something on there. And I put all kinds. I tried Bible verses. I tried things. And then I was like, let me just try Joe Wiki since it's my handle on everything. And it was available. So I got it. It's more just so that when I go into places and I have to know my license plate number, I will know what it is. It's not as vain as it sounds, but I'm also pretty excited about it.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I'll never forget the guy that was basically all over you about being some sort of woke person because of Joe Wiki.
That was every day.
Yeah. And it was just like, it's his name,
Yeah.
Joshua William King, Joe Wiki. It's the first two letters. And anyway.
Yeah. Now it's on my truck.
You gotta love internet trolls. But now it's on your truck. I think it's great.
Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah. So anyways, if you had vanity plates, what would you put on them? Have you ever thought about that? It probably is available in Florida.
It probably is. Yeah. Why is that your license? It's like my good friend. It's his Twitter handle.
Yeah.
His Google Plus handle. I miss Google Plus. Bring it back, Google. Bring it back. It was glorious. Me and Josh, you were king on Google Plus. Like you and I were a big deal on Google Plus back in the day because we were like the only ones there.
There's this guy up in Oklahoma that every time he sees me, that's like he comments about how much I liked Google Plus back in the day. I mean, that is his comment every time. This last week he just texted me, or he was commenting on something, and that's what he brought up. I mean, but yeah. Hey, we got to do our sponsor.
We do. Thank you, church teams. If you are interested in anything church management software, they can do it. So they have a full slate of programs, offerings, and services. You can reach out to them at est.church. That'll take you to a landing page where you can sign up for their free trial. I encourage you to do that. It'd be good just to check it out, even if you already have some church management software. Be good. Now's the time to kind of do a comparison, see what you have, see what they offer, get the free trial. And that way you can, without any risk, just see what Church Teams does. I have a feeling that a lot of you, if you try it out, you're going to find that it's better. And I can certainly vouch for their service. I can vouch for their team, for their integrity, and how they run their business. Top-notch stuff, top-notch technology, top-notch team. Go to Church Teams. est.church is where you can find their free offer.
Yep. All right.
I'm tired
of talking about it.
I'm tired. I don't care. We were just talking about before the show. You knew of a pastor. I don't know that you know him personally, but you knew of a pastor that basically said he was doing a counseling session, and the person was pouring their soul out, and he was just to the point where he's like, "I just don't care. I just can't take this anymore." I think to some degree we've all been there. We've all been so tired of giving empathy that we're just done. We're cooked. And that's what
to give. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about today, is how we can overcome compassion fatigue. But I do want to talk about some of the symptoms and some of the ways that we get compassion fatigue. And I think the first is the most obvious, and that's just setting yourself up to have a Messiah complex, like where you think you have to be the one to deal with all the stuff. You don't have to be the one that deals with all the stuff. I rely on my deacons for that. Josh, I don't know what you do at your church. My deacons are awesome. I saw an email pass through. Actually, it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. A widow needed some help with something. And immediately, I was on a list of, hey, so-and-so needs help. And one of our deacons replied within like 5 minutes. And he was like, I'm going over there right now. So it was just awesome. Like I didn't even have to like delegate it to somebody. They already just run with it. And so I'm very grateful for my deacons. What does that look like in your church? Because obviously you can't do everything either.
No, I think it looks very similar. A lot of the benevolence and compassion needs are met through either small groups or deacons, and I like that ministry teams, whatever you want to call them. I like that that's happening. I do have my regular fair share of people that will message and they want to meet with me. I like before show you said, or before record you said something along the lines of like compassion fatigue is very similar to decision fatigue, and I'm very familiar with decision. I make decisions all day long. I go home. Jackie asked me like 2 questions, and I'm like, my goodness, quit asking me so many questions, and it's because all day long I'm making a decision on something. I want to go home, and I don't honestly care what we eat. I don't care what we go do. I just don't want to decide. I feel like that's a good working definition for compassion. And when you talk about it with the Messiah complex, we often think about Messiah complex in the terms of the arrogance, like I am God's gift to the world. But there is a Messiah complex that you think you have to fix these things. And I often say, look, the world has a Messiah and you ain't it. So you don't, like one of the releasing things, specifically dealing with the compassion or Messiah complex, is to realize Christ is the answer, not you. Point people to Jesus, care for them, sit there in their pain, that sort of stuff. But you don't have to you can't fix it. And that's so freeing as a pastor to realize I can't fix this stuff. All I can do is point you to the one who can. So I think it's good.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, compassion fatigue is excessive weariness due to the cumulative effect of caring for, listening to, and helping people with emotional and spiritual problems. So, very similar to decision fatigue, except it doesn't have anything to do with making decisions. It has everything to do for caring for and listening to people. And we only have so much empathy to give. We don't have, I mean, you're right. Only Christ has an infinite amount of empathy. Ours is very limited and it can become depleted. And if you operate from a depleted standpoint for any length of time, you are going to get into a place where you have compassion fatigue. And one way to do that is through this Messiah complex. And, I would argue that even if you're not arrogant about thinking you're everyone's savior, if you're still trying to solve everyone's problems or thinking you're the only one who can, that still is arrogance. Even if you don't
It
come
is.
across as
It's veiled.
narcissistic,
Sure.
a lot of times we think of Messiah complex as narcissism, and that can be, but it can still be arrogance. If you're like, no, I'm the one that needs to do this, there is a level of arrogance, even if it doesn't come across as narcissistic.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest way that pastors get compassion fatigue, is just this belief that I'm the pastor, I have to do this. And that's just not true. And I understand there's plenty of people at smaller churches, bivocational pastors, they're like, I ain't got anybody else in my church. And I would argue I get that. I've been there. I've been at, a church of 6 people where I kind of had to be the one. And then we grew and I still kind of had to be the one. But it is your responsibility to equip the saints. So you need to be training up somebody to help you do that.
Yeah.
Another way to get compassion fatigue is just by not giving yourself enough margin in the day. Don't schedule like 6 back-to-back counseling sessions. I don't know anyone that does that, but ill-advised, right? Ill-advised. And you have to be selective. Man, the other day, I had multiple deaths. Let me just put it that way, multiple deaths to deal with. And I had to prioritize them. I mean, it was horrible. Like, I couldn't be at the hospital with some family members that I needed to be with because I was with somebody else. And I felt so badly about that. So you get into like triage mode. And this is another reason why you do need good people around you. But when you just do things from just one after the other, after the other, after the other, that is a good way to get compassion fatigue.
Yeah, and you scheduling margin in every decisions in your even if it's not compassionate meetings, if it's just planning meetings, those kind of things, you got to really listen to your body and understand that you're just not made to schedule out your entire day. There are people that just have their entire day scheduled out. You've got to schedule in some margin. You need to schedule in some time to think ahead, to plan ahead. I think I've gotten to the point where about 3 of these meetings, I can't do more than 3. I'm going to just bump you, even if I have the time on the schedule. I'm going to bump you to the next week and try to, with all things even. Like, nobody's about to die. It's not an emergency. Those sort of things. I'm going to try to bump you to the next week. The other thing is, like, Monday, particularly in the mornings. I may not be compassion fatigued, but I am not compassion surplused. I don't have extra compassion at that point. Um,
I'm
but
I'm
when,
I have preacher brain. I call it preacher brain on Mondays.
yeah,
Like I'm fine. I actually get up and I work on Mondays, but I do
mhm,
not meet with people because I'm like, what? Who are you? Where am
mhm,
I? What am I doing? Like I just have to I have to like read research for my sermon, write my sermon, things
mhm,
that don't require me to interact with people because after Sunday I'm like, and I'm an extrovert. Like
yeah,
this, I love people. Like,
mhm.
if someone came over and knocked on my door on Monday afternoon, which sometimes that happens, it's like, hey, come on in. But I got preacher brain. That's what I call it.
Monday, I have executive or administrative brain. I'm just thinking numbers and charts and systems. That's just the way my brain works. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm much more of a pastor, much more of a shepherd. So Wednesday evenings, I find are really, I don't know why, I just feel like I can shepherd people and love them and care. Thursdays, I'm pretty great on that stuff, and I love that. I find, and maybe you're the same way. If you do public speaking every week, if part of your role is preaching every week, I have a low grade, dull sort of anxiety until the sermon is sort of roughed out. And so I have to get through Tuesday morning before I feel some level of mental freedom. Otherwise, there's just this little thought in the back of my mind. I got to find an illustration. I got to find a closer. I need to really exegete that text a little better. So by Tuesday afternoon. So I don't know. And all of this is silly. It may sound silly to you. I don't think it is silly. This is Sam and I knowing who we are so that we can be the best shepherds that we're supposed to be, what God called us to be. So you need to do that work of figuring out your own body and your own mind.
Yeah, I don't do much on Saturdays. Like I really push back hard when people are like, hey, can I have the funeral on Saturday? I'm like, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
I really, I mean, sometimes I have to
sure.
because, family's coming in or whatever. But, I really try to direct people in a way like, hey, here's how I'm going to best be able to help you.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with you setting those boundaries.
No,
And
there's not.
because it helps you minister better and everyone's going to have a little different. Some pastors like to take Monday off for that reason. I don't,
Right.
but that may be
Me
what
neither.
you need. You got to
Right.
set yourself up for the long haul. And if you don't have these guardrails, you're going to burn out. You're going to flame out. And part of the problem is compassion fatigue. So what do you do about it? So we kind of started headed down this road. I would just say set those boundaries. Pick a Sabbath, stick to that Sabbath day. For me, it's Saturday. And I really work hard to protect that because I'm usually spending time with family. I can go all day Sunday and not see my family. Well, I'll see them. My kids will run up to me and give me a hug typically, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I love that after church. Um, and Wednesdays I don't often see them either because they're in student ministry and children's ministry. I'm leading the prayer meeting, so a lot of times my paths don't even cross Sundays and Wednesdays. If
Mm-hmm.
they do, they're very brief. So Saturday for me is like that's family time. So pick a Sabbath, stick to it, and that's a really important part of protecting your emotional stability.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I look at it more like working out, or maybe a recipe, whatever the illustration is you want. You can't just exercise your compassion muscles, right? So I think that when I find that I'm in my healthiest modes is I went ahead and did my workout that morning. I read my Bible that morning. I am kind of up on my reading, on the non-Bible book that I am reading. I I find that I need at least once every 2 weeks, I need to go have a coffee or a lunch with another pastor so that we can just hang out. Like a peer-to-peer sort of kind of I need that. If I don't have that, I start to get all sorts of, like, I don't know, moldy on the inside. Stuff doesn't work right. I also need something. I find that, like, if it's a season where there's a lot of rain, um, the odd thing is because I don't get to mow the yard or I don't get to wash my truck, there's something broken on the inside of me. I need a project that I accomplish every week. And so my point is, you got to kind of find those various zones in your life and feed all of them. And then I find that when I'm feeding all of them, just these little simple practices, then I'm much more equipped to be compassionate or creative or, aggressive or a leader or whatever I need to be. But you got to find those zones and don't just be a one trick pony. Go out and stretch those muscles, be creative, read, learn, all those kind of things.
Yeah, that's a good word. And having those tasks that are just fun to do, to check the box, those are
Yeah.
recharging tasks. And as a
Yes.
task-oriented person myself, those are good things. The other thing that I'll say is, you can be strategic with your empathy. There's different kinds of empathy. There's this idea of having empathetic concern, which is trying to improve someone else's well-being. And then so that's empathetic concern. And then there's emotional empathy, which means you're trying to internalize someone else's feelings. You can do better when you use empathetic concern, where you're trying to attempt to help somebody improve, as opposed to emotional empathy, which is not, now I'm internalizing their emotions. That it is
Mm,
way more exhausting to internalize someone else's emotions than it is for you to say, okay, what can I do to help them? And that may sound nuanced, but I do think it helps. You tend to get more exhausted when you're feeding off of the emotions of someone.
mm,
Sometimes that's unavoidable. I mean, I had an instance this week. A mom lost her 3-year-old child. I can't help but to internalize those feelings because I'm
oh yeah.
walking.
Right.
This
Mm,
3-year-old drowned. Just horrible
mm.
tragedy. So,
And there's nothing
um,
you can do to fix it.
yeah,
There's
yeah. I mean
yeah.
that's just going
Yeah.
to be exhausting. That's just going to be a tough, tough week, right?
Yeah.
But outside of the tragedies, which goodness, just go all in. Like you're just going to get worn out, and that's a good thing because
Mm,
that person, that family, they need you because it is a horrible tragedy. But you can be strategic with your empathy rather than trying to internalize someone else's emotions. What you can do is you can have what is called empathetic concern, which is let me help you figure out how you can help yourself.
mm.
And that's a better way to approach it.
Yeah, I kind of visualize the idea of a doctor or nurse caring for a person with a mask and gloves on. Like you still have to be protective of your own heart, your own mind, those sort of things while you help another person. And what that means is so you're having pastoral conversations. There might be one session that somebody just dumps. You just sit there and like they're sitting in your office and you're like, just tell me about it. Like and all you're saying back is that's tough. That's hard. I get it. That's not fair. That kind of stuff. But if that starts to go 2 or 3 and there are all certain personalities that just want to meet with you because you're in their mind the person who has to sit and listen to them. You need to put up a healthy boundary that's like, okay, now what are we going to do to change these circumstances in our lives or to affect this better? We've had several episodes talking about our limitations when it comes to psychological or emotional help and where we need to find those people in that industry. But at the same time, some of it's just people who have regular, everyday struggles, emotional struggles or challenges, and spiritual even. It is not healthy for you just to be a place where they are just going to dump all of their unhealth on your desk and then expect you to turn around and do something about it. So you want to have a very clear sort of and the way that I do that is from the beginning, let people know this is how this is going to work. I'm happy to listen and I'm happy to be here, but if I determine that you need help that I can't provide, I'm going to find that help for you. And there's times where you have to go to people and say, "Hey, listen, how can we go ahead and move past this? We've talked
Yeah.
about this 2 or 3 times. Let's go ahead and move past this. Um, how can I help you do that?"
The last thing that I'll mention in terms of, okay, what can I do not to, have compassion fatigue is to stop relying on your annual vacation to be that
Mm-hmm.
recharge.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that, it should be a recharge. It should be a refresh. It should be, something that allows you just to have downtime so that you can get your wits about you again. It's not like you need to just go and go and go and go and go, and then I'm going to completely rely on my vacation to be my whole year's worth of a recharge.
Yeah.
That's not a good use of a vacation, and it won't be that for you. You'll come back from your vacation even more tired. Those are what your days off are for. That's what your Sabbath is for. You know, your vacation it's if you have a family, it's an extended amount of time with your family so that you can enjoy them, right? I mean,
Mhm.
this is not you like, man, I need, if you get to the point where you're like, I need a vacation just because I want to get some sleep, just because I just need some downtime. Well, no, you're supposed to be doing that all along. Your vacation's not supposed to be that kind of crutch for you. And
Mhm.
if you're limping into your vacation, your annual vacation every year, it's not going to be long enough for you to recharge.
Mhm.
It's not going to serve that purpose. Same would be a sabbatical. I think the world knows how I feel about sabbaticals at this point, and I'm not a big fan because people use them in ways they shouldn't use them. It's like, I
Mhm.
need a sabbatical. It's like, you haven't done life correctly if you like need a sabbatical, need that vacation because you're so worn out. No, no, you're supposed to have better boundaries than that, and you're not
Mhm.
modeling you're not modeling life well for your church. You're not shepherding
Mhm.
well if that's what's going on. Now understand, like, hey, it's been an awful 3 months. It's just been
Yeah.
exhausting. Okay, we all
Mhm.
go through that. I'm just talking about the general normal life patterns. You shouldn't have to limp into a sabbatical. You shouldn't have to limp into a vacation. You should be taking your Sabbath on a regular basis, and that should be your recharge.
Yeah, I would just, sort of my final thoughts are just this idea that any sort of fatigue is a warning sign. If it's just physical fatigue, you're tired, that's your body saying you need to rest right now, right? So if you're decision fatigue, you need to slow that down. If you are compassion fatigue, you need to slow that down. And we are a compassion industry. We have to be compassionate. It's like part of what we do. And so you can't just keep going and pushing past that. You can't keep going from meeting to meeting to meeting. And so I would say, like, any sort of fatigue that you have, make some adjustments and make them right now. And don't wait for something else to happen. That means you're going to have to call some people and say, hey, look, some stuff has come up. I love you. Can we postpone this meeting to next week? Just that simple thing of going, I'm fatigued right now. I can't do one more meeting, but I don't have any next week. Bump it. Bump it to the next week. Stop meeting with the person for the 15th time. There's no benefit coming from these sort of things. Don't be as available all the time. Be available in certain times. Those kind of things, just go ahead and do it right now. Set those boundaries, communicate those boundaries. And I think that nearly anybody is going to respect that if you say it the right way. Don't act like you're not a victim of your job. You're not a victim of anything. That's not what you're saying. You want to best position yourself to help people, and this is how you're going to do this because I've got to do other things as well. And most people will respect that.
Well, there you go. That's all the time we have for today's episode. Tune in next week. We've got another episode coming your way, just like we do every week. Hopefully, you don't have EST fatigue, because we want you to
Just
keep
once a
we want
week.
you to keep
It'll
listening.
be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to our sponsor, Church Teams. Again, you can get their free offer at est.church. And if you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up on the video. That'll help us out. And rate, review, and subscribe in your favorite podcasting app. We'll see you on the next episode.
Peace.